let's talk about something fascinating. What happens when you take just a 72-hour slice of time, just 3 days, from one country, in this case, Israel, in November of 2025? You get a flurry of events that seem totally disconnected: an arms deal, a tech breakthrough, and a media scandal. But when you look closer, they start to paint this incredibly vivid, complex, and really contrasting picture of a nation that is always in motion.
So on one hand, you've got this major defense agreement being locked in. It's a move that strengthens a critical strategic alliance and has some pretty big implications for the balance of power in the region.
At the exact same time, in a totally different world, a brand new tech startup gets this massive injection of cash, $100 million to try and shake up an industry that's dominated by a few global giants.
And then you have this. A global media powerhouse is absolutely rocked by scandal, and the fallout is definitely being felt in Israel. So, 3 totally different stories, right? Well, together, they tell a much bigger one.
So let's start with that first thread, security. You really can't understand modern Israel without getting a feel for this. It's this constant reality, this hum beneath the surface, that really shapes almost everything. And boom, right out of the gate, we get this stark reminder of the kinds of direct threats we're talking about. News breaks that a plot by Iran's Revolutionary Guards to assassinate the Israeli ambassador in Mexico was just foiled. Mexican security forces stopped it, and the report suggests the cell was actually working out of the Iranian embassy in Venezuela. Wild.
Now, it's not just about stopping immediate threats. There's this whole world of deep strategic alliances, and you can see it right here. India is Israel's single biggest defense customer. I mean, look at that number. 34% of all Israeli defense exports over a 4-year period. That is a massive partnership, both economically and militarily.
But here's where this new deal gets really interesting. It's not just about India buying missiles like the Rampage off the shelf. No. This is about technology transfer. They're getting the know-how to build the more advanced LoRa missile themselves. This is a huge deal because it dramatically extends their reach and lets them hit targets without putting their own pilots in harm's way.
And just when you think you have a handle on it, the picture gets even more complex. The former Israeli ambassador to the U.S. kind of pulled back the curtain here. He explained that even when there's an official ceasefire, there can be these secret back-channel diplomatic agreements. He called them side understandings with the U.S. that basically allowed Israel to maintain what he called freedom of action against threats in Lebanon, even during a truce.
Okay, so take a breath. That's the security picture. Now let's pivot completely, because at the very same time all of that is going on, a totally different story is unfolding, one about building for the future, with massive investment.
Check out this number. 65 billion shekels. That's the initial budget for a new metro system under Tel Aviv. We're talking about the largest infrastructure project in the country's history. Ever.
And this isn't just some new subway line. I mean, look at the scale of this thing. 150 kilometers of tunnels, 109 stations. They're projecting it'll handle 800 million trips a year and save the economy something like 34 billion shekels annually. This is about fundamentally reshaping the country's economic hub for generations.
And you see that same forward-looking energy in the private sector too. An AI company called Majestic Labs. I mean, most people hadn't even heard of them. They were in stealth mode. They just burst onto the scene by raising an incredible $100 million. Just like that.
So what are they doing with all that cash? Well, their goal is just massive. They're trying to solve one of the biggest headaches in artificial intelligence, this memory bottleneck that slows down even giants like Nvidia. But here's the cool part. Instead of just trying to make a better chip, they're completely redesigning the server to give the processors access to 1,000 times more memory. It's a total game changer.
And this quote from their CEO really gets to the heart of their whole philosophy. He basically says, hey, everyone's focused on the wrong thing. The problem isn't the chip, it's the whole system. And, he should know, this is the guy who was the chip czar at Google and Meta.
So you've got these massive public projects, you've got this huge private investment, and what does that all add up to? Well, you can see it right here in the national bank account. Foreign currency reserves just hit another all-time record high, climbing to almost $232 billion.
Okay, so we've talked security, we've talked innovation, but that's not the whole story, is it? Because all this pressure, all this intensity, it also forges a really unique cultural and political scene, one that often ends up on the world stage. I mean, just take this for example, a high-fashion show in Miami. But the models walking the runway, they weren't professionals. They were active and wounded female IDF soldiers. One woman had survived being shot 12 times. It's just incredible.
And the designer, Ali Tahari, he explained that the show was his direct, emotional response to the trauma of conflict. For him, it was a way of turning the runway into a powerful statement about strength, about resilience, and ultimately about a desperate motivation for peace.
So you have this very personal, artistic statement on a catwalk, and then, during the same 72 hours, a massive global media controversy explodes. We're talking about the BBC. And this is huge. Its top two executives, the Director General and the head of news, both resigned. Why? Amid a storm of accusations of deep-seated, systemic bias in their reporting.
And the whole thing was triggered by this really damning report from a former internal advisor. As you can see, it laid out some serious claims. Manipulative editing of a Trump speech, but also, and this is key to our story, specific allegations of anti-Israel bias in its Arabic service, like excluding stories that were critical of Hamas.
Well, Israel's foreign ministry jumped on this immediately. They released a statement basically saying, see, this is what we've been talking about for years, framing these resignations as confirmation of what they called a deep-seated bias in the BBC's coverage of Israel.
So let's pull all of these threads back together. Remember, this is all happening in the same few days. You've got security threats, massive technological leaps forward, and these cultural firestorms. It really paints a picture of a nation that is operating on multiple frequencies all at the same time. And that's the key takeaway, isn't it? This constant juxtaposition. You're foiling assassination plots while, at the same time, raising $100 million for the future of AI. You're planning a metro for the year 2042 while you're trying to navigate a complex ceasefire right now. Wounded soldiers are on a catwalk while the country's in the middle of a debate about global media. It's an incredible study in contrasts. And that really leaves us with this one big thought, doesn't it? How does a country not only survive under this kind of constant, immense pressure from all sides, but actually manage to build a future out of it? It's a question of how you don't just endure these paradoxes, but somehow find a way to thrive within them.